Time now for Restoring the Soul of Healthcare from the HELPcare Clinic in Austin.
It is that time. We welcome to the program Dr. David Strobel and Lee Aase. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, thanks, John. Glad to be with you.
And I am very intrigued on our topic for today because I have to admit I've been guilty of it. I step on the scale, I look at that number, and I'm like, all right, I know what I need to do. But today we're going to learn about how that number really isn't the most important thing that you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, it really doesn't tell the whole story. What it's the new capability we're excited to be able to talk about today is called body composition analysis, and it's using a device called the InBody 570. And this is something that Dr. Strobel has had experience using as part of the Pipe Trades Clinic. And as we were talking and planning about developing HELPcare Clinic, he said, "Well, I'd like to eventually get one of those InBody devices because I think it'll be really helpful for our members." And so we're excited that as of today we have it and we're able to offer it. But I want to have Dr. Dave talk a bit more about what that provides for us and what it really tells us, and going beyond the single number that you get on the bathroom scale.
Yeah. So we've talked about the metabolic syndrome, which affects about 50% of Americans in the United States, and another 40% of Americans have at least one part of the syndrome. There are 5 different criteria, and you need 3 of them to have the syndrome. So that means that 90% of Americans have metabolic syndrome or pre-metabolic syndrome, and only about 10% are metabolically healthy from an energy standpoint. And so one of the things that I think we've talked about is how the body is kind of designed to store excess energy if we take in too much carbohydrate, and it stores it as fat. And of course that has implications for body weight. But people have this idea when you talk about the concept of obesity that you say, well, what's that? And they'll say, oh, well, you weigh too much. And that is technically not correct. And so the important thing is to know that obesity does not mean that your body mass index is too high. It doesn't mean that your shadow is too wide. It doesn't mean that your body weighs too much. What it means is quite simply that your fat tissue weighs too much. And so aside from sending you over to the hormone plant and having QPP dissect out all your fat and then weigh it separately, there are other less invasive ways to figure out how much fat do you got and how much water do you got. And this is one of those methods. And so you can use this body composition analysis device to be able to figure out, well, how much fat tissue is there? And in fact, where is it? And at least in general. And that can be terribly helpful in helping people understand this. So this is a really good technology. It's not perfect, but it is very commonly used in gymnasiums and workout areas, things like that. People may have seen these things. In fact, I think there's one gym in Austin that actually has one of them already. It may not be the same brand. It might be a different brand, but we use the InBody brand, not necessarily advocating for that brand, but that's the one that we've got. That's the one I've got the most familiarity with. So it's available, and it is going to be a powerful tool.
I'm just kind of curious, how does it work? You said it's not invasive. Is it a body scan? How is it taking these measurements?
It basically sends a low voltage electrical charge through the body, and it does it in a crossways fashion. So that you stand on this device in bare feet, and it's got some metallic pads that you stand on. And then there are some handles that you hold and you put your thumbs on them. And that basically closes the circuit so that it can send this low voltage charge in kind of a crossways fashion through the body. You don't feel this at all, and it's safe for people that even have electrical devices inside them. So it's not something that, if you have a pacemaker, that you can't do it, for example. And it basically measures how quickly is the electrical current transmitted. And of course, water with salts dissolved in it, which is what our body water is, transmits electricity quite well, and fat doesn't. And so by measuring what's called impedance in transmission, it's able to estimate, well, where's the fat and where's the water? And water in the body is mostly muscle and bone and soft tissues, things like that. And fat is, of course, a different type of tissue. So it'll help you be able to separate those two things out. So it not only monitors basically where fat is, but it also tells you something about muscle weight as well, which can be very helpful.
Well, and you kind of, I was just going to, a quick follow-up that you mentioned it earlier about sometimes, you find out where the fat is. Where it is isn't necessarily a bad thing when it comes to body fat. Sometimes it's like real estate, location.
That's exactly right. There basically are two different kinds of fat in the body, and they're just roughly called brown fat and white fat, or brown fat and yellow fat, depending on who you talk to. Brown fat is very, very minimal. There's just a small amount of it. Most of it's right behind your collarbones. And that's actually a very, very significant endocrine organ. You want lots of brown fat. You're never going to have lots of brown fat, but if you had more, it would be healthier. So that's not the kind of fat we're talking about, but that does get measured in this device. The rest of it's white fat, and white fat basically serves three different purposes. One is that it's just structural. So you've got a fat tube that your kidneys sit on top of. It's called Gerota's fascia, and that keeps the kidneys from bouncing too much. So that's really important. And you have fat around your heart that basically pads it so that you're not aware of every heartbeat that you got in your body, which is kind of convenient because that would be real distracting. And then there's structural fat in addition that is underneath your skin, and this mostly makes you cute, so you don't have sharp edges that stick out too much, and it keeps you warm. So there's two reasons. Now, the rest of the white fat is nutritional, and that's the problem, is that because of our diet, we simply store too much nutritional fat, and that's mostly in the liver and inside the abdomen, and it's very associated with increased cardiovascular risk. The good news is that you can burn it off pretty fast, too.
The other thing I was going to add about this is what's so positive about this technology is that, there are some people, like I have a bathroom scale that I've used for a couple of years that has it does send an electrical current through you as well and gives you sort of an estimate of body fat. But it's only going through 2 points, and so it kind of goes from one leg to the other and doesn't really get up into measuring the whole body. Whereas with this, you actually have 8 different contact points for the electricity, so it can be much more precise. And then it uses 6 different voltages or frequencies or whatever. I'm not sure exactly the electrical term, but it's by kind of varying that in just 45 seconds, it gets you a body composition that is 98% correlation with a DEXA scan, which is sort of considered the gold standard for non-invasive treatment. And that has radiation, and this has no radiation. Lots of the health clubs around the country offer this as a membership benefit, or else they have an a la carte option. And we're kind of doing the same thing. We're going to be offering this for those who want to just come in and get one scan. They can get it for $50, and that's kind of the standard price that facilities have for this. But for those who are members of HELPcare Clinic, this is something we'd like to see them do once a month if they'd like to. Especially if they're on a body recomposition journey where they're trying to perhaps lose some weight and gain some muscle mass and strength, because it's not just about the fat, it's about how much muscle do you have that can support you, especially as you're aging. Frailty and falls are among the top risks for people as they get older. So if they can get a sense of their body composition and what they should be working on and what they can do to get healthier, we'd like people to be able to track their progress and see, because sometimes that number on the scale just gets stuck and people get frustrated and lose heart. But if you can check every 2 to 4 weeks, and we're glad to be able to offer this to our members at no additional charge for the membership, then they can get some positive feedback and motivation to make those changes if they want to make.
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of as we get down to being out of time here today, one thing I was going to say is that it's really about knowledge is power, that rather than just knowing the one number, the more you know and the more you can work within those numbers to get them balanced out or altered or changing them to a more healthy lifestyle, the more pieces of information you're dealing with, the better.
That's correct.
Oh,
yeah, and so we'd encourage people to stop by. We'd be glad to show them this if they'd like to get a scan. As I said, we're offering this on an a la carte basis for $50, but it's also included in our HELPcare Clinic membership, and right now we're in the summer savings period where the individual memberships are $129 a month. For a couple, it's $229 a month, or for families, $329, and those are $20 a month off the regular rates that will go into effect in September. But this includes not only unlimited, unhurried visits with Dr. Dave or Stephanie Kimmis, who's our nurse practitioner, but then also 30 or 45 of the most common lab tests, blood diagnostic tests, and then things like the FibroScan, which we mentioned earlier, which is for liver scans, as well as then the new technology that we have today, the InBody. So for people who are interested in learning more, stop by and see us at 308 4th Avenue Northwest. It's a block east of St. Augustine's. Give us a call at 507-279-2345, or go on the web at HELPcare.health, and you can see some information we just posted today about the InBody.
I was reading it earlier, and it is really fascinating. Things I didn't know, and like I said earlier, knowledge is power, and being able to have these tools at your disposal is a pretty powerful thing to have. Gentlemen, have a fantastic week. Great information. I really look forward to visiting with you next week.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. The HELPcare Clinic, check it out for yourself. Great way to be able to take control of your health care and really be a vested partner in getting yourself on a pathway to being healthy and staying healthy.